Hi, I'm Cori, and for this Think for a Change video, I'm going to do a follow-up to a previous idea that I had posted in one of my blog posts a few months back. The blog post was entitled, How to Fake That You're in Love, and the main idea is that we have, instead of this kind of natural response of our feelings and our emotions, we have a decision, a choice, our own active part to play in, one, feeling the way that we do, and two, maintaining those feelings. So this takes up basically that old cliche that's probably on bumper stickers or something about how love is a verb rather than a noun. You know, it's not just a thing, it's something that you do. And it's by doing, by acting, by behaving in a certain way that we actually cultivate and maintain certain feelings, even something so like romantic as love. Where this idea gets really interesting is when we apply it to other political realms, especially those of attraction and sexual pleasures. So, for instance, if we say that our natural response is to be attracted to certain people over others, there might actually be a way in which our attractions to people have already been shaped, and we, unconsciously perhaps, continue to make decisions that facilitate our only attraction to certain groups over others. So part of this is if you find yourself attracted to like people of your own race versus any other people, or also if you find yourself attracted to people of the opposite gender more so than people of your same gender. Obviously, one of the easiest responses against a kind of same-sex attraction is that it's not natural. But if we were to say, okay, no, you know what, I'm very progressive, I as a woman can acknowledge that other women are very attractive, or I am very progressive and I as a man, a straight man, can acknowledge that other men, even of other races, are very attractive, okay? That might be, I don't know, a way to say, okay, we can be attracted to other people, but we might still come up against a little bit of a hurdle if we very progressive people are saying, yes, we're attracted to people of our same gender, we can find them attractive. If we say, wait, no, I can say that they're attractive, but I would never want to have sex with them. Why? Well, because I like what I do. I am perfectly content with the sexual behaviors that I have as a heterosexual, and even though I can find women as a woman attractive or men as a man attractive, doesn't mean I want to have sex with them, and plus I wouldn't even like it, and if I tried, or maybe I did try and I didn't really like it anyway. Okay, whoa, hold on, stop. We're getting somewhere here. What we're getting at is even the notion that something so basic, seemingly basic as our sexual pleasures, can also be developed. In all those defenses of saying, I might be able to acknowledge that someone else is attractive, sure, but that doesn't mean I want to have sex with them, or even if I did have sex with them, it doesn't mean I would like it, or maybe if I've tried it, I didn't like it and I won't like it any longer. We need to pause there and say, why not? Because our sexual pleasures aren't so natural and basic that we can't cultivate them, that we can't make decisions to choose to feel certain ways and do certain things and enjoy it. Instead, this is very plastic and fluid, and it's something that is actually quite free. So what this really means is that we have the choice to maybe actually exercise our sexual pleasures. Just because you say that you like one thing over another doesn't mean that you wouldn't like that other thing. So really what this is getting at is that even if we said you tried it, you didn't like it, we could say just because you don't like it doesn't mean that you won't. What about concerted, dedicated effort, or a real cultivation of the feeling through a kind of deliberate practice? That might still be possible. And we're not just talking about, you know, straight people wanting to be gay, or acting gay, or not, I don't want to say that. Straight people engaging in sexual actions with people of the same sex or gender as themselves in order to try to push this kind of like homosexual agenda on the left. If you don't want to go on the leftist homosexual agenda conspiracy, we could just say, okay, in the interest of all the lovely straight people out there who aren't really exercising their sexual potential to the fullest, we would like to encourage them to feel as much as possible and feel very empowered as straight people to do what they want. That doesn't mean that you have to be with a person of the same sex or gender. Like, for instance, in a previous video, I talked all about heterosexual male anal eroticism. Anal sex is a great thing to talk about this because I've seen with so many straight guys in my classes say, oh god, no, I would never do that. Why? Oh, that does not feel good. It wouldn't feel good. Not that I've ever tried it, but I don't think it would feel good. And I'm like, well, maybe it would. So, in one of my favorite classes that I've ever taught, I had a student come forth and say, you know what? I have a story. And the story was how she came to love tomatoes. This is a common experience, right? There's a food that you say you don't like, you've never liked it, you hated ever since you were little, and she hated tomatoes for as long as she can remember. But she decided that she wanted to try to like tomatoes. So, to facilitate this process, she tried putting tomatoes in certain things. Like, you don't have to go on eating a tomato with your fist like an apple. You can actually start by, putting a tomato on a sandwich, or putting some tomatoes in sauces, or maybe in salads, or trying to do different things with tomatoes until you realize that, like, tomatoes aren't just, like, gross, but they're actually, like, pretty awesome. They can be used for so many things. You see what I'm doing, right? So, the tomatoes story became a thing where it's like, you don't even have to go full on tomato, but maybe like play around with tomatoes and see if you like it. You probably will. They're good. They can be good. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you won't, right? So the same thing can go for, say, heterosexual straight guys who want to avoid anal play. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you won't. It doesn't make you gay if you're doing it with a woman, right? Or just because you don't like other dudes doesn't mean you won't. Vice versa with women. So this isn't, what I'm trying to say is that this isn't just about making people queer or doing queer things, but it's about talking about the naturalness or the non-naturalness of our pleasures, and that we actually choose or choose to not do certain things that either restrict or free up our experience of sexual pleasure. And this is really, really important. I also realize that it's really dangerous. And here's an example of how the argumentative strategy that I'm taking right now about just because you don't like it doesn't mean you won't can be a double-edged sword. Because we could also go, or imagine it working in the opposite direction, where someone says, oh, homosexuality is wrong. If you like gay things, okay, but that doesn't mean you have to do those things. And if you say you could never be straight, or you don't like straightness, or you've been gay since the day we were born, doesn't mean that you wouldn't actually like to be heterosexual too. So let's just find you a nice heterosexual partner, have you work on playing around with certain things, and then maybe you will develop to like heterosexuality, okay? So this would be any kind of classic conditioning example, like the Michael Bachmans in the world, who would say, just because you don't like straight sex now doesn't mean you won't. And that means just because you're gay now doesn't mean you couldn't be straight eventually. And that is basically taking a similar theme to what I'm saying, but it's using it in a completely different way. And that is important to realize. So if we have this kind of double-edged sword of an argumentative strategy, or an argument, which is basically saying our feelings, even our attractions, and even our sexual pleasures are not natural, but rather cultivated and can be deliberately shaped once we own that sense of choice and freedom and responsibility for how we feel, then, this gets messy. Right? But here, this is why I made the video before about the truth box and the status quo. That we can still say that there's one way to talk about the cultivation of pleasures without going into a kind of, well, that means Michael Bachman can force you to be straight if you're gay. Or people like Michael Bachman. Instead, we can say, well, on one hand, that argument is being used by the Michael Bachmans and others. I don't mean to just target Michael Bachman, there are plenty of them out there. The argument is being used by those people in an oppressive way that is actually limiting the freedom, the expression, the feelings, the potential for other people by saying, you don't like it? Well, maybe you should go and be straight because straightness is what we want. In the other's direction, by me saying, hey, even straight people, there's a lot of other things to explore. That doesn't mean that you need to be gay in anything. If anything, it means don't be such a homophobic jerk to people who like certain things. Or also recognize that you might be limiting your own pleasures. I think that can go in the opposite direction too, for queer people, right? Just because you have always been attracted to men and you are a man, you've been gay since the day you were born, a la Lady Gaga, doesn't mean that you couldn't actually ever fall in love with a woman. And I think that's fine to admit. I think that's just taking away the pressures and the limitations on either side. The real problem becomes when that argument is used for oppressive practices of limitation, restriction, rather than opening up possibilities and freedoms. Possibilities, potentialities for pleasures, for love, for connections, for emotional experiences, for all sorts of things that could actually be very, very, very good. So, anyway, that's that's a story about tomatoes. And this has been a Think for a Change video. If you like the videos, please like it on YouTube, subscribe, and you can also check out my blog at CoriWong.com, and I'm also on Facebook too. Just click around, you'll find me somewhere. Thanks for watching, I'll see you soon.